We come now to our final question today. It reads, I've been confused by a teaching concerning the authorship of Genesis. According to your notes and those of the Scofield Bible, Moses was credited with authoring Genesis. However, I've heard teaching that Genesis was written by different authors. Most recently, our pastor said that chapter 17 was written by the priests in captivity, while chapter 18 was the work of the Yahwehists. Where does he get this teaching, and is there any proof to support it?
May I say to you, the authorship of the book of Genesis in my day in seminary was a great big question mark, and there was a great deal of discussion about it. But fortunately, several of the outstanding scholars, including them was Dr. Green, who was an Old Testament scholar. And these men were conservative men, and they all took the position that Moses was the author, the human author of not only the book of Genesis, but the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. And they had ample evidence for that. Dr. Scofield in his notes could make the statement that Moses was the author. And it's on the basis of that scholarship that I made the statement in my notes that Moses is the author. Now, the thing that you have suggested is rather amusing to me. I took a course in a liberal seminary in this very thing. These are not the only authors. There's the E author, the Elohim author. And they not only divide it between 2, but they divide it among a half a dozen different writers. And the interesting thing is that there is not a scrap of evidence for this type of thing. And I'm glad I don't know who your pastor is, and he might be my dearest friend. I don't know. I'm sure he's not that, though. But any pastor that would teach that sort of thing today is definitely a liberal. I mean, without any knowledge, that is, any documentary evidence to make statements like that is absolutely uncalled for. Now, he may want to study it and be acquainted with it. I took a whole course in it, and at one time, many years ago, I knew this theory through and through, the different ones who wrote the different chapters. The only problem with that is there's no documentary evidence for it. And friends, you need facts to back up statements like that. If you're going to say Moses didn't write the Pentateuch, then it's up to you to tell us who did. And then when you come forward with a lineup of writers, and they actually did not exist, you can't even prove that these folk even existed, let alone prove that they wrote the book of Genesis. And may I say to you, this is the wildest I've heard. I don't know who your pastor is, but he is a liberal. The chances are he's a young man just out of seminary and doesn't know any better. And I hope that in time that he's going to learn that when he makes a statement, he better be prepared in these days to back it up with evidence. There is evidence that Moses is the author of the Pentateuch, not just Genesis, but the entire Pentateuch. And it's a long story, by the way. I have 3 or 4 books that I still keep in my library. Every now and then I like to just read a page or 2 out of one of these books of real scholars, men who knew what they were talking about and were able to back it up. And may I say to you, I think that among conservative scholars today, that the authorship of Moses is pretty well established. And when anyone goes out on a tangent like this, they have to belong to the liberal school, or it may be some young preacher trying to show off how smart that he is, but I don't think that shows how smart you are. It may show how dumb you really are.